Welcome to the first live stream of the Half Point Per podcast. I am your host, Evan Riggs, joined by super producer Johnny Pham. No Dalton Willie today. He is being a scumbag at the Chiefs game. Johnny, there was some rust that we had to get off to get this live stream going. We were talking to ourselves for a good 3 to 5 minutes there. One pretty funny story that I guess will never see the light of day on your end. It's too bad, but how are you doing on this Sunday morning?
I'm doing good. I'm shocked that Dalton's not here. I want to face me either because we're matched up this week in fantasy.
Yep.
So I'm sure he's probably embarrassed. Didn't want to face me either. I'm sure he'll probably skip out on Tuesday after I just beat him so bad he'll have to bench his entire team again. I don't know. A lot of question marks there.
I will say I'm completely uninvested in that league this week since I had Christian McCaffrey go out very early. I have very, very little shot to win my matchup this week.
Yeah, and that's why I hate FanDuel sometimes, where they just bait you into the risk-free bet. I was like, oh, I'm going all in on McCaffrey right now. -8.5 receiving yards, just anytime touchdown score gets hurt in the first quarter, but it's fine. 12 touches, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a sad deal for everybody who has Christian McCaffrey and everybody who was counting on McCaffrey for a lot of he was in a lot of prop bets, I'm sure, on Thursday night.
Just pain.
But if you're in the stream, you can see the guys scrolling across the bottom are out for today. T. Higgins, not a big surprise. We had kind of been hearing on Twitter the last couple of days that he was, I think, expected to be on track to be doubtful, which is just a word way of saying he's not going to play, and he's not. Darrell Henderson is out. That was one that was up in the air all week. Dalvin Cook. Mike Zimmer was talking like he just had to play this whole week, talking like a coach who needs a win to help that job security. And Dalvin Cook is, in fact, not out there today. And then Antonio Brown has been on the COVID list for the last few days, not able to get off of it. So he is out. And I guess where we can start with this here is Darrell Henderson. Obviously, Sony Michel is the next man up, and I guess Jake Funk is behind him. They've not got a lot that you know about behind Sony Michel.
Matt Stafford season now.
Yeah, and I would say I'm not leaning into the run game at all this week. They play the Bucs. The strategy the first 2 weeks against the Bucs from two different teams has been #never run. We are not running against the Bucs, and we are especially not running up the middle against the Bucs if we can avoid it. Sony Michel, that's kind of his game. So I'd be surprised if he gave you a lot. If you're desperate, you could play him at your RB2 and pray for a touchdown. Pray he can get
goal line touchdown.
Pray he can get you 6 or 7 points, but I don't see a lot of upside. Henderson, I think you still would have had to start because he can get involved in the passing game too. But a pure runner and plotter like Michel, I don't have much interest in.
I don't really trust Michel that much, and I'm not really sure who the backup for Michel is at this point. So
I think it's Funk, but I honestly couldn't tell you.
I can see Matt Stafford having at least 45 passing attempts this game, maybe even more, around that range.
This is probably, even though both defenses are pretty good, this is probably a shootout type of game, and with Antonio Brown not being there, I think this is a good week to trust the passing weapons of both teams, the main guys of both teams. Whereas the Bucs on a week-to-week basis, it's kind of hard to predict which of the four main guys are going to have the big game. There's usually one that's left out. I think Godwin, Evans, and Gronk can all have good games this week because the Rams are no slouch to run against, and Fournette isn't exactly a world beater compared to Sony Michel either, and I'm definitely not trusting Rojo.
No.
Any more than Bruce Arians would trust Rojo, which is not very much. So, I'm in on Cooper Kupp. I'm in on Robert Woods. I know it's not been the best start for Woods. Van Jefferson is interesting in DraftKings. I think I don't have him in my lineup, but he's an interesting cheap play. And then I'm in on all the Bucks.
Is he like 2,500? What's his price at?
Let me look.
Relatively cheap.
Yeah, Van Jefferson. He's not gonna be 2,500. He'll be more than that. I would guarantee. He's 3,400, which but that's still like really really cheap. Like let me pull the prices back up. Like the guys around him are like it takes 8 years to even scroll past the $4,000 range. Like Eric Ebron 3,300, Paris Campbell 3,300, Kendrick Bourne 3,400, David Njoku 3,500. Like those are the types of guys. So like I think if you're going with like a studs and duds type of lineup, I would say that Van Jefferson is my favorite super cheap guy if you need to afford other people in your lineup. But Dalvin Cook is probably the most important and the next that we should get to here. It's not official, and we're probably not going to know until later today after the noon games because they're in the 3:30 window, but he is not expected to play. It doesn't look like he's going to. And Rappaport is even reporting that if he does play, he's probably going to be pretty limited.
Yeah.
So I think you've probably got to bench Dalvin Cook today, and obviously you're not looking his way. In FanDuel, or in DraftKings, which is too bad because Derrick Henry just rushed for a bazillion yards against the Seahawks last week. So I think Dalvin Cook was in line to maybe have his first kind of blow-up game of 2021. So a bummer there. I think if you have Madison, he's not a guy that I have to get in my lineup this week.
Yeah.
We've thought that in the past when it comes to Madison. And it just hasn't ever turned out that way. Like he's never come in and produced like an 80% of Dalvin Cook type of game when Cook doesn't play. It's always been disappointing to what expectations have been, at least for him.
I agree. Just because you would think Madison would get somewhat the type of, not same volume, but similar, but he just doesn't produce. Like he's just not clearly not as good as Dalvin. Like I don't even know what scenario where the backup comes in and he's just as productive, kind of like James White or Sony Michel. If James White is out, Sony Michel was easily the RB1 in the Patriots scenario a couple years ago, and that's just not what you're seeing out of Madison this year or previous years, I guess.
Yeah, like he's in that RB2 or flex range, like very low end RB2 and flex. If you're desperate, like maybe you had T. Higgins in your flex and you don't like your other options. Like I could see starting Madison, but he's not a guy that I'm going out of my way to get in my lineup. Maybe DraftKings. Maybe I should look and see what he might be dirt cheap in DraftKings.
Yeah, I feel like it's just kind of like a dart throw to kind of start him. It was like if you have him on your bench and you have Dalvin Cook, that's a handcuff. Like you might as well start him just because that's why you drafted Madison and that's why you have him on the bench.
Yeah,
for those scenarios.
He's if you have Cook, I can definitely see it too. He's 6,000 in DraftKings, so he's already priced like Cook isn't playing today. So yeah, I don't really have much interest at that price point.
No.
Some guys that are in, let me go adjust and get that one scrolling across here. So Carson Wentz, a bit of a surprise. We thought since the guy had literally like twisted 2 ankles, he wasn't going to be playing. You're not playing Wentz, but you feel better about Michael Pittman, especially. It was a bummer. Like Pittman had this huge week last week, and it was like, well, you probably can't even use him because Wentz isn't playing. But now I think you can use Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And then I liked OBJ on the list too. I'm curious to see who do you think will have a better game, OBJ or Allen Robinson during that game? I'm just really excited to watch that game. I feel like it's gonna be a good one.
I am excited for that game too. I would go Allen Robinson. I just trust him a lot more. I mean, we haven't seen Odell for a year now. Essentially, he got hurt like week 6, week 7. And so it's been almost a full calendar year since we've. I have
a feeling that he's just going to get like an 80-yard touchdown, screen or
he could because there's no Jarvis Landry, and then the other guys in that passing game, like Schwartz had a good week 1, was basically non-existent last week. and then like Peoples Jones, like they just they don't have anybody else you trust besides the tight ends like Hooper and the Joker are gonna have
I definitely feel like
some kind of value, but
Baker's
yeah,
gonna throw some like attempts. Like I just think one will eventually connect, and he'll just have a good day because of that.
he could. I think Odell is a guy that I am putting on my bench if I can, and you probably can because you've gone without him for 2 weeks, and I don't think you've been like I don't think it's been a situation where people are like, oh God, like I can't wait till this guy gets back because I need him in my lineup the first week he's back because of where he was drafted. So I think I'm letting it ride for a week with Odell.
Yep, I agree with that.
But speaking of that game, Darnell Mooney, a guy who was questionable all week, he is playing, which is exciting. DeAndre Hopkins never practices all week, but he is going to play. You are starting DeAndre Hopkins because he usually
have to
just fine. Even when he doesn't practice, he's fine. And yeah, if he's active, you start him. And if you get burned, you get burned. DeAndre Swift is playing, and Kenny Golladay is playing. And whether or not you start him depends on if you have some guys on your bench who have overachieved. Golladay is a guy who I could see benching if you've got other options, but also they play the Falcons. So like this could be the week where Golladay kind of puts up some production for you.
Kind of just shows out. And I agree. Like I think the Falcons are gonna be another game I just want to watch just to see how bad their defense does.
I am interested in that game as well because I have a star of the week in that game, which I'll get to right now. I also have 2 guys in the draft from DraftKings in that game too, including my star of the week. So my star of the week, and this is not a guy that you are benching by any means, but it's not impossible that teams are looking to bench Saquon Barkley if they can, like if they've got other guys who have played well. I'm starting Barkley full throttle. He's in my DraftKings lineup. He's 6,500 this week, which I think is about the cheapest you're going to see Barkley in DraftKings, unless he's injured, of course. The Falcons defense is just not good. Barkley didn't have a huge day, like from a raw fantasy production standpoint last week. And it's a real discussion, I think, as to whether or not he quite looks like the same guy. Like I know on that long run, everyone was talking about Chase Young running him down and catching him. But it's like, well, maybe 2 years ago that doesn't happen, even for as much of a freak as Chase Young is. So Barkley may not be fully back. We could have a little bit of the Dalvin Cook post ACL year where he just isn't quite that guy. And then next year is the year where he really
get back to full strength.
Gets back to full Saquon. But what you've got to like is he played 84% of the snaps last week after playing just 48% in week 1. He had 15 touches, up from 11. I would not be surprised at all to see that number bump up a little bit more touch-wise in like the 18 to 20 range. I think they're going to slowly up that workload for him. And they're 0-2, so they need a win. And what better place to look for a win than your best player?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just was rethinking about like 3 years ago, just whenever like CMC and Saquon were just like at the top. And now we just have to kind of like follow their injuries so closely. And it just sucks as like a football fan and like also a fantasy football user, I guess, of just seeing those guys always hurt. And just that lingers like, is he fully back yet? Okay, that was a nice game, but is he actually back? And just think about 3 years ago, they were just at their beginning of their peak, but at the beginning of their career. So it's just kind of sucks with injuries.
So I'm not predicting like the full on like blow up game this week.
But I better than previous.
I do think Saquon is going to have a good game this week. And this didn't impact my decision making, but it does make me feel a little better about Devontae Booker is like a surprise healthy scratch today. And so I literally have never heard of any of the other guys who are backing up Saquon today. So that helps a little bit the volume argument, I suppose.
Yeah. I didn't have a start of the week, but
that's fine.
I do really like Cooper Kupp against the Buccaneers. I feel like they've nailed this to the ground about Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford's relationship. I mean, he's produced very, very well the first 2
The,
weeks.
the only thing that we haven't heard yet that we need to is that they're the full Antonio Brown, Tom Brady, that they're roomies, they're besties. They are literally living
Well,
together. That's like
I know
the
they're
next
not
step.
roomies.
Not yet.
Not yet, but they get to the facility at the same time. It's like that's cool. And then they said it again in the third quarter and then the fourth quarter, and we're like, "Ow, we know by now."
I agree, and yeah, it's you can't really go wrong with Cup with how good he's looked this year and the volume that he's got, and the Bucks have been able to be had passing the ball at least, and
like
we talked
the
about it.
defense doesn't look the same as what we thought it was last year, just because they brought back all same defensive starters.
Yeah, and you know their defense even last year, their front seven is great this year and was great last year, but you could pass on them last year still. I think we got a little bit of an overinflated sense of that defense just because of the Super Bowl. And because like even the Packers put up points, like Taylor Heineke put up points. The Saints with Breeze and one shoulder put up points and arguably should have won the game if Jared Cook doesn't fumble. So not to say the Bucs should have won the Super Bowl, but to say that that defense is very good. But I think you can start the pass catchers against that defense for sure.
I agree.
But
I like Cup.
I do as well. He's like a top 5 receiver. You're definitely playing him if you've got him. My sit of the week, doing this just for Dalton since he's not here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think has got to be my sit of the week this week. There is definitely a scenario where Andy Reid and the Chiefs double down and CEH gets touches this week and is like the guy, and you know he's their guy. They really go in on him as their guy, and he gets plenty of touches. But I think there's also a world where he's lost some trust, both because of the fumble, obviously the fumble just as bad as it gets as far as timing and all of that, and then frankly just he hasn't played very well these first 2 weeks running the ball. He's left some production out there, I think, and also like the pass protection. There was that play week 1 where Mahomes scrambled for the long touchdown where he had like roll clear back out and then come back across the field. It's like, well, that only happened because CEH literally let a guy get by him untouched almost in pass pro. So there's just been things both running the ball and in passing situations where he hasn't quite been that guy yet this year. And he still could be, but I'm letting it ride on the bench this week. And not to say this is what's going to happen, but just to give other people an idea of the pulse of the fan base, I think a lot of people would be happy if Jerick McKinnon saw more touches. Yeah. Not more touches than CEH, but was just more involved this week.
I agree with that.
So, and me too, personally. I've liked what I've seen from McKinnon every time he's been out there in the preseason and very limited during the year so far.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we just give McKinnon more opportunities, not more touches than CEH. Just an opportunity just to kind of prove himself that he's kind of there for a reason, and give CEH something like over his shoulders. Like, okay, I need to get better.
It could come at the expense of Darrell Williams instead of CEH too. Who knows? But like I think McKinnon is like a good pass protector and can also make some plays. Darrell has the pass protector part, not quite the make some plays part. But yeah, I'm letting CEH sit this one out if I have him this week, and I think he's going to have to prove his way back into my lineup a little bit, and we can talk about maybe what that looks like next week, depending on what type of game he has.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the section that everyone has been waiting for, the DraftKings lineup that is clearly going to win anybody a buttload of money if they play this lineup. This is the best I've felt about any of my DraftKings lineups this season. Boy. Which means it's probably going to bomb.
Yeah, I'm just ready for you it be burned by the noon games being over.
Okay,
not winning.
So at quarterback, and I've got everybody in the noon games but one guy actually.
Oh, okay, that's good.
At quarterback, I already mentioned it. I've got Fields. He's 5,200, which is like as cheap as you can get for a starting quarterback. So
I like that.
You love the upside, and yeah, it's just a cheap play. You can fit a lot of guys in into your lineup that way. Saquon, touched on him. He's my star of the week at 6,500. Just to kind of look at that price range, you can go Saquon at 6,500. You can go Joe Mixon at 63, Chris Carson at 64, Najee Harris at 66. Those are my options kind of in that range. I think Saquon is my favorite of those guys. And then Tyson Williams at 5,800.
Ooh.
He's got the Lions this week. I thought he looked better. Obviously, it's the Chiefs, so the Chiefs' run defense is not good right now. But I talked a lot after week 1 about the read option. Like he did not understand the read option. He wasn't trying to physically take the ball from Lamar, but didn't understand the read option this week. So you like that. Latavius Murray is going to be involved, but I think Tyson, at least for now, you have to say is the leader of the committee. And Baltimore is obviously a team you want a piece of that rushing attack. And they play the Lions.
Yeah, anything against the Lions, you just kind of want to experiment, throw a little dart. Could be just a big boom game for Tyson.
Mm-hmm. So, and then at receiver, so I looked at that Rams Bucks game, and so let me look at what Cooper Kupp's price is, because he's not. Yeah, Kupp is 6,800, so I couldn't afford him.
Yeah,
and even Mike Evans I actually couldn't afford. But my second favorite guy behind Kupp in that game is Chris Godwin. Godwin, I think.
How much is Godwin?
Godwin's 6,100, so he's a couple hundred cheaper than Evans, and I just think he is the pass catcher I want all season for the Bucks, but especially no Antonio Brown. Godwin is the guy who does more of the over the middle, intermediate type of stuff.
Run after the catch. He's so good after the catch.
And not sure how the Rams are going to play it, but it would not surprise me if Mike Evans gets the Jalen Ramsey treatment all day today. So you could see a Godwin, Gronk, and maybe even like Scotty Miller makes an appearance today, but I'm not counting on that in DraftKings. But yeah, I like Godwin a lot at 6,100.
Yeah, I think that's a good bargain.
And then I went with the cheap stack in Chicago. I know you mentioned Allen Robinson earlier. I'm going with Darnell Mooney at 4,300.
That's not bad.
Yeah, he's pretty cheap. He's got a lot of targets. Hoping, and if that stack can pay off, if they can even get me
a good boom,
if they can even get me like 30 points between the two, like 25 points between the two, that is, I mean, the two of them combined are probably cheaper than Christian McCaffrey was in DraftKings on Thursday.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty cheap stack because how much was Fields again? Like 53,
5,200, and then 52. Mooney is 4,300. So, like for example, they're only like 1,000 more than Travis Kelce, who is also in my lineup.
God, yeah, that would be a good little stack that would pay off.
And I'm going with Calvin Ridley, and I know it hasn't been the best start for Ridley. He had a touchdown last week, and he's been getting a lot of targets. I think he had like 11 targets last week. Yeah. And that offense just hasn't looked good. For as bad of a matchup as good of a matchup as the Falcons are for opposing offenses, I'm not scared of that Giants defense by any means. They're better, but they're not great.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Kyle Pitts to go off.
This could be a week for both those guys. They're clearly the 1 and 2
getting a lot of targets,
and it's not even close. I think both those guys could have great games this week. Yeah. Ridley at 7,000, he's my second most expensive guy. I think this could be a blow up week for Calvin Ridley against the Giants and Kyle Pitts. It could be for both. But instead of Pitts at tight end, I almost like automatically try and get Travis Kelce in my lineup.
You start him with that and then work around your budget.
I literally put Fields, Mooney, and then Travis Kelce. Those are my three. I was like, okay, what can I do with those three in the lineup? Now Kelce, it's 100 yards or it's a touchdown or two, or it's both. Like every week. It's so consistent. And he's probably he's a popular play for sure, but he's not like. It's not like he's a guy who's in a ton of – he's not like a chalk play, I don't think, just because he's so expensive. And I think you can buy yourself a big points advantage at tight end if you can figure out the other spots.
Yep, I agree with that. I think we're going to be on DraftKings watch for you.
I hope so. And then I've got two more spots here. The flex is Tyler Boyd, who I mentioned at 4,700. He's the budget option with with no T. Higgins today. Obviously, the Steelers matchup, not great, but you know what? He fits into my lineup. If you're looking at 4,700, the guys around that range, let me scroll. It's like Cole Beasley, McNichols, the backup running back for Tennessee, Zach Pascal, who has been good, so not a bad one. To show you what DraftKings thinks of Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, that is what he costs in DraftKings as well. So he is priced like a backup this week. Noah Fant, he's priced the same as Ronald Jones. That one I pretty strongly disagree with. I would still take CEH over Ronald Jones pretty strongly. I think.
Gosh.
But yeah, I would take Boyd at 4,700. I think he should have some good volume today. Yeah. And then lastly, in that game, I always go super cheap at defense. I spent up $100 at defense to 2,100 to get the Bengals, which is the tied for the second cheapest. And nothing about the Bengals defense, more about the Steelers offense, has not looked good at any point this season. And there's no Deontay Johnson. So I think
maybe primed to throw some picks.
Yep, throw some picks, maybe a sack or two. And really all they have to do to live up to that 2,100 is not go in the negatives. If they give me like 3 points, then that's
a win.
Value. Yep.
But it could also be -8 and just be a shootout.
It could, but I'd be pretty surprised if the Steelers put up that many points, because the way it works for defensive scoring, obviously, is if it's like a pick six or like a defensive touchdown, the defense of the other team only gets dinged 1 point. They get dinged the extra point. So you're even protected against fantasy. Yeah. What you're not protected against, of course, is a Burrow turnover and then the Steelers score from like a 15-yard field. But yeah, I'm going cheap. I don't mind it. Johnny, I'm very confident this lineup is now going to win $0.
I am too. I'm kind of hyped about it. But I'm like living through you with this.
I'm pretty excited about it. We'll see how it goes. Anything else to add before we get out of here and root like crazy for our 16-leg parlay in my draft?
No, I'm very excited to get out of here. Kayla's out of town, so I'm doing like the 3 TV setup in the living room. So very excited for that.
Yeah, I'm banned from multiple TVs. It's
yep, I heard that. Don't know why.
It's a real bummer, but yeah, I wish you good luck in your matchup and then your 3 TV watching today. And we will talk again on Wednesday.